This video is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts, the best place to get your classic and vintage football shirts. To get cheap retro Palace shirts, click the link in the description below. And for an extra 10% off, use the code CFSPJ10 at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Equaliser Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook, and in today's podcast I'll be looking over the game against Southampton by bringing my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you interviews with Roy Hodgson, Luka Milivojevic, James McArthur and Bakary Sako after the game. So let's begin. Luka Milivojevic atoned for his injury time penalty miss 2 days earlier by firing home an excellent winner to help Palace recover from a goal down to beat Southampton. The Eagles registered their first top flight winner at the home of the Saints since November 1990 thanks to the Serbian strike 10 minutes from time that extended Roy Hodgson's side's unbeaten away record to 5 matches, equalling their best run in the Premier League. That looked to be in jeopardy when Shane Long opened the scoring during a drab first half, but after the break James McArthur netted from close range to spark the comeback, before Milivojevic completed it to kick off 2018 in perfect fashion for all of the red and blue perspective. Despite not tasting victory for 8 games, the hosts started much brighter and looking fresher from their extra day's rest, with the Eagles forced to play just over 48 hours after drawing against Manchester City, and so all the early sights on goal fell to Macho Pellegrino's team. Not much more than 10 seconds had elapsed when Long was found by Buffal and curled just over the top before Tadic suffered the same fate a few minutes later. But after a quarter of an hour, Wayne Hennessy required all of his 6'7" frame to tip over an erring shot by Hallberg as the Eagles' defence creaked. And just 60 seconds later the pressure told. Ryan Bertrand got to the left byline and flung in a cross into the box that evaded everyone, but was received by his fellow fullback Jeremy Peed on the opposite flank. With the south coast wind swirling, he opted to play a low centre towards the penalty spot where Long was on hand to draw home his first goal since February and end his lengthy goal drought. It took Palace half an hour to force ex-Eagle Alex McCarthy into a meaningful save, when in an attempt to get his side going, Andros Townsend fired goals from 30 yards and forced the Saints stopper to edge his bouncing blast past the post. But despite improving their possession and territorial stats in the final stages of the half, that was as good as things got for Hodgson's team before they retreated to the shelter of the changing rooms. But after the restart, Palace continued in the same vein and had the majority of the play, and that allowed them to carve out a great chance on 64 minutes when Wilfried Zaha found Christian Benteke in the area, whose shot on the turn skidded along the slick turf and tested McCarthy, who produced a good low one-handed stop. However, they weren't to be denied 4 minutes later when they conjured up a fine equaliser. After winning a free kick on the left, Patrick van Aanholt's delivery was headed out to Townsend, who clipped it back into the danger area, and after Benteke rose the highs to nod it into space, McArthur was primed to blast the ball high into the net and score his 6th goal of the campaign, making him the Eagles' top scorer this term. Having been the better of the sides for the majority of the game, Palace didn't look content with their point, and Milivojevic nearly turned home a free kick when it wasn't properly cleared. But his moment would come with 10 minutes to go, as donning the captain's armband for the first time, he turned the game on its head. After the ball was played forward, Bakary Sako did well to hold it up and find Townsend on the right flank, who spotted the run of the Serbian. He in turn played a pass to Milivojevic to run onto, who produced an exquisite first-time shot from 25 yards that curled into the bottom corner of the helpless McCarthy's goal, and sent the travelling Palace fans crazy. The victory could have been sealed later on when a Hennessy clearance caught strong wind and sailed over the Saints' back line to give Zaha a strong shooting chance, but he wildly blazed over. But Palace held firm to see out the final few minutes and clinch another massive 3 points. Crystal Palace came from behind to win 2-1 against Southampton in their first Premier League fixture of 2018 on Tuesday night. Shane Long ended his 11th month wait for a goal and opened the scoring for Southampton in the 17th minute, when he was well placed to turn in the ball after Palace failed to clear a low cross. But the Eagles battled back in the second half, and James McArthur fired in an equaliser after the break before Luka Milivojevic netted the winner as Palace took all 3 points back to South London. So what do we learn from the game? Here are 5 things. Number 1. Festive fixtures pile up on Palace. With 3 fixtures in 6 days, it's not particularly groundbreaking to suggest that Palace looked hard, but they really did in the first half. The monumental effort to become the first team this season to stop Manchester City from scoring looked like it had really taken a toll on a lot of the players. Attacking runs were not sharp, Southampton's attacks were slow to be closed down, and the whole display appeared lacklustre. But after the break, Palace came out a different side, and with the injection of some fresh legs in Patrick van Aanholt and Bakary Sako, the Eagles were able to come back storming to earn what looked like an unlikely win at the break. Number 2, Hodgson has a decision to make at left back. Patrick van Aanholt's surprising brilliant performance against City on Sunday may have merited a start against Southampton, but Schlupp returned to the starting side. Perhaps Hodgson is working on rotation and planning to play Van Aanholt in Monday's FA Cup clash against Brighton. But after having the impact again on the South Coast, a good performance then and a Dutch defender could mount a serious challenge for a longer run in the first team. Number 3, Crystal Palace do the dirty work. It wasn't pretty, anyone that meant to the match could tell you that, with the stormy conditions and a heavy pitch. But Crystal Palace did what was necessary of teams in their position to do, and dug out a win in a tight game. The performance wasn't eye-catching, but the result is a testament to the side's ability to grind out a result when they're not playing at their best. Number 4, Benteke's form is improving. The curiously strong winds inside St Mary's meant that Christian Benteke was very effective in the air, and headed plenty of passes to his teammates. In a game where Palace appeared to lack invention, this was a very useful way of getting at Southampton. It was the Belgium's headed knockdown that set up McArthur, who equalised for Palace. The Belgian forward might have scored for himself, but for a good low save by former Palace goalkeeper Alex McCarthy. He's not back to his best, however. Wilfried Zaha slipped Benteke through on goal with one defender for company. The striker had a couple yards head start, but looked feeble in his effort to drive goalwards, and nothing came of it. There's much more to come from the attacker, but this was a step in the right direction. And number 5, Crystal Palace need a fully fit Yohan Cabaye. Yohan Cabaye's involvement against Southampton was limited to just the first half, meaning the last time he completed a full game was against Stoke in November. Palace lacked creativity on the ball, and with Cabaye fully fit they may have been able to better use the midfielder who started in a number 10 role. The Saints were not impassable at the back, but were rarely troubled in the first half due to the Eagles' lack of intervention. Hodgson confirmed after the game that Cabaye was not injured, but admitted that he, like the others in the team in the first half, had appeared leg-weary after the excursions of the festive period. Now I'm going to move on to the player ratings, but before I start, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at @Crystal Palace for all the latest Palace news. And also, if you're on Facebook, do feel free to join our Facebook group, which is a really great place to join in with discussions and also share your opinions with other fans. And much like a forum, it's a great place to upload videos, photos and any news articles you want to share with other Palace fans that you've found online. Then of course do feel free to join the Facebook group so you've got a platform to do that. So if you are someone who likes to go on forums and likes to share your opinion and read what other fans are thinking about the club, about transfers, about players and about performances in games, if you are someone who wants to get involved with discussions like that, or even you want to post your own opinion on there or your own photos, then of course do join the Facebook group, because much like a forum, it's a great platform for you to share your opinion on there. Now another great place to share your opinion is in the YouTube comments. So if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then do feel free to drop a comment below the video with your player ratings, rating the players' performances from 1 to 10, with obviously 10 being the best. And you could do this along with your views of the game. So whether you're a Southampton fan or you're a Palace fan, do feel free, if you come to the video, not only to comment your player ratings, you know, where you rate all of the players' performances and how well you thought they played in the game, but also comment your views from the game. So if you're a Southampton fan, obviously you're going to be quite disappointed that you gave away a 1-0 lead. Do comment below in the comment section, even though you're not a Palace fan, do comment below with your views of the game and whether you think that your manager should stay in charge for the January transfer window, whether you think he's the man to take Southampton forward. And if you are Palace fans, come to the video, comment below about how good of a job you think Hodgson's doing, what sort of signings you want us to see bringing in January, anything like that, you know, and you want anything like that you want to share and you want others to see, then do feel free to drop it below in the YouTube comments. But the main reason I want you to comment is of course that you guys come to the video to listen to my views in the podcast. So what I want you guys to do is comment below so that I can come back to the video and see what the listeners thought as well. And that could be, it's not only me who can come to the video and see what other fans are thinking, it's also fans from Southampton and maybe other Palace fans who wouldn't normally listen to the podcast. They can also come to the video and not only listen to my opinions in the podcast, but they can also read your comments to have an idea of how their opinion compares to not only mine, but also people in the comment section. So do feel free to drop a comment below the video with your views of the game. So if you do want to follow any of these social media pages and join the Facebook group, then do check all the links that will be in the description below. But I'm now going to move on to the player ratings, starting in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I am going to give a 7. Good save to tip over Hallberg's long range drive, but seconds later in 17 minutes he was picking the ball out of his net due to Shane Long's goal from 12 yards. Apart from that, he was fine in the first half. Second half, not much to do, the basics were there. So Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 7, and following on from his brilliant performance against Manchester City, where he obviously kept a clean sheet, he carried on that form and actually had a pretty decent game here, and that's why I've given him a 7. But to really, Southampton haven't really been playing that well offensively this season, and actually quite a lot of Southampton fans, they've been calling in the January transfer window for them to bring in a striker purely because they haven't got any firepower up front. And actually in this game it was quite evident in the fact that Wayne Hennessy didn't actually have quite a lot to do, and that's not just because in the second half we played really well. It's purely because Southampton, although they've got some good midfield and defensive players, going forward they haven't really got that attacking threat, and it just shows that someone like Shane Long, who hasn't scored in about 11 months, it just shows that actually when he scores, it shows that actually Southampton haven't really got that firepower up front. And because of that, because they haven't got that much power up front, they haven't got that much threat, Wayne Hennessy was barely troubled, and the only players to trouble Wayne Hennessy were players from the midfield taking long range shots. So there was one from Hallberg, I believe his name is. He had quite a good shot from long range. Obviously Hennessy, fantastic save, stretching save to tip it over. And actually, I've criticised Hennessy, but as much as I love Speroni's quite short, and I don't think he would have been able to catch that, or to tip that over for a corner. So actually, in that respect, Wayne Hennessy, because he's got that height advantage, it allowed him to make that fantastic save. But like I've said, fantastic shot from Hallberg, but a good save from long range. Then a few minutes later, obviously he made that fantastic save, then he was picking the ball out of his net. No real blame from him there. Obviously Shane Long, about 12 yards, even less than 12 yards in the box. Defenders all around him, and he just hits it through goal. Because it's quite crowded in the box, Wayne Hennessy couldn't really do too much there, so you can't really blame him on the goal, because realistically it should have been Fosu-Mensah stopping the ball coming into the area, and also someone like Kelly or Tompkins, who are in the central of defence, they should have been able to clear the ball before it got to Shane Long, because it was quite an easy finish for him. And obviously, like Palace do, we like ending players' bad runs of form. But apart from that, in the first half he was fine, made a few good saves here and there, a few decent catches, and overall commanded his side really well. But then in the second half, where Palace dominated a lot more than they did in the first half we were quite bad. Second half we were playing really well, but really Wayne Hennessy didn't really have too much to do, like I've said already, because Southampton, other than Shane Long, didn't really have that firepower up front. But the thing that I liked about his performance, and the reason I've given him 7, is the fact that the basics were there. The fact that even though he didn't have much to do, when he was called upon to make saves, he was able to do that. But the main thing really for me that's really good about this game is the fact that he's carried on his form. So he's one of these players who's a confidence player that if he has a bad game it affects him and it can go on a bad run of form. He had a really great game against City, and obviously he's now recalled back to the starting 11 a few days later, and actually the fact that he followed it up with another good performance is great to see. And this one was even more confident than the game against City, purely because, like I've said, he's a confidence player, so he's played well against City, got that confidence, and he obviously brought that confidence into the game here. But based on this performance here, we've got a really important game against Brighton coming up the beginning of next week. Personally for me, I can see Hennessy possibly starting this game, purely because, yes, you may say that Speroni knows the derby and he's got the passion for it, but based on form and based on the fact that Hennessy needs to carry on playing in terms to keep up his confidence, we need to play him again. So really for me, I think Hennessy, because he's had 2 good performances on the bounce, he does for me start against Brighton. But Wayne Hennessy here, a 7 for him, couldn't really do too much about the goal. Great save in the first half from Hallberg from a long range effort, and then in the second half Southampton didn't really put too much pressure on him and he didn't have much to do. Now to move on to the right back, Timothy Fosu-Mensah, who I'm going to give a 6. A quiet first half, but didn't do anything wrong against the tricky Buffon. Got forward a bit more in the second half, but did pick up a booking. So Fosu-Mensah here, much like Hennessy, had a fantastic game against City, and in this game here, yes, it was slightly more disappointing, but you can understand that when he's only played 2 days later. So really, I'm not really worried too much about his performance here, because he didn't do anything spectacularly wrong, and he didn't do anything fantastic. So really, you could understand him being tired, and that did show in his performance. But for me, I've given him a 6, because although, obviously, like I've said, Southampton weren't really threatening. Yes, in the midfield, they were quite good, but up front they weren't. And because of that, Fosu-Mensah had quite a quiet half. And to be honest, when he was up against Boufal, very good midfield player for Southampton, quite a lot of the time Boufal was obviously trying to get things going for Southampton, and really Fosu-Mensah didn't really do too much wrong against Boufal. So actually, you know, his job, even though he's tired, is to mark Boufal and make sure that Boufal doesn't create many chances. And other than the goal that Southampton scored and a few chances early on in the game, there wasn't really anything of note or anything really of note from Southampton offensively that actually Fosu-Mensah had to deal with. And then in the second half, although his first half was quiet, second half he went forward a bit more, and that's quite surprising when you consider that he was quite tired. But obviously did pick up a booking, probably a bit frustrated and a bit tired towards the end of the game. But at the end of the day, I'd rather someone take one for the team, get a booking to stop an attack when we're trying to get back into the game, and that was fine for me. But to be honest, like I've said, even though he was tired, he kept going. And when we consider that in the second half we came out rejuvenated, you know, Patrick van Aanholt came on, the whole sort of team had more energy in it. Fosu-Mensah, even though he's played against City, his second half performance was a lot better, and he was the one of the main players in terms of helping us get forward, because what he done, instead of staying back and defending, obviously he still tracked back a few times, but he was starting to push up a bit more in the second half to get things going. And when you consider how well we were, even though the players are fatigued and tired, you know, when you consider how well we were pushing them, Southampton, in their own half, you know, towards the end of the second half, it's just, you know, credit to obviously the forward players. Obviously we were playing with almost like a front four players at that point. No one had specific positions because everyone was moving about, but we were playing with that back four. But that support from that right back in terms of Fosu-Mensah going forward was great to see. But much like quite a lot of the players, obviously he did struggle with the heavy pitch. You know, Southampton's pitch was absolutely terrible, much like the pitch at Selhurst Park was a few seasons ago. You know, obviously there was lots of heavy rain and the drainage weren't working, but the pitch was really lumpy, and you know, it wasn't really a Premier League quality pitch. You can understand Fosu-Mensah struggling on that. And to be honest, yes, it wasn't on par with his showing against City, because he played absolutely phenomenal against Manchester City, but he did what was required. You know, he done the simple things right, he done what was required from him, and obviously overall that's what you expect from a player. You know, if they're not going to have a phenomenal game where they're bossing the midfield or the defence, you want them just to do their job and do the basics right. And I thought, up against Boufal, I thought that Fosu-Mensah done a great job there. But Fosu-Mensah here, I've given a 6 for him. He had a fairly quiet second half, but done alright against Boufal. In the second half, he did push forward a bit more and obviously did pick up a booking. But honestly, in my honest opinion, I think he did play a little part in terms of our second half revival. So Fosu-Mensah here, I think a 6 is a fair result. Now to move on to the centre-back James Tonkins, who I am going to give a 7. Not much to comment on, really, for the first half. Fairly solid. Made sure of his clearances in the second half. So James Tonkins here, I've given him a 7, and much like the performance of the goalkeeper Wayne Hennessy, he didn't actually have too much to do in the game. And really, if you look back at the game and look back at the highlights as a whole, there's not really too much to comment on, because there was nothing he done fantastic in the game, and there was nothing actually of note that you could say, actually, that was quite a bad mistake. So really, he just had a really average performance where he done what he had to do, and he done everything that you would expect from a defender. So really, especially in the first half, not really much to say about that first half. And to be honest, he was fairly solid. And obviously we did concede the goal quite early on in the game, obviously Shane Long ending his goal drought. But like I've said already, personally for me, Fosu-Mensah should have stopped the ball coming into the area, but because everyone was quite tired, everyone was quite slow to chase players down and close them down, and because of that, Southampton had quite a lot of space and they were able just to put passes around us. And because they had a day's extra rest, obviously that gave them a little bit of a boost, because they were more fitter than our players were, and because of that they were just able to put passes around and obviously score. So really for me, yes, you could say that James Tonkins should have cleared the first goal, or at least Kelly as well, who were in the box. But really for me, looking back at the game, obviously they're quite fatigued playing 3 games in 6 days, so you can understand them being quite tired. And like I've said already, the ball came in, because we gave them too much space, that's why we scored. It wasn't necessarily a big defensive mistake, it's purely because the players didn't have the energy to close players down. But something I liked about the second half, obviously we had to be quite secure at the back and quite solid to make sure that we didn't concede another goal, which luckily we did. And to make sure that we could go on and get the win, we needed to make sure that we, you know, got clear of the danger. And that's something that I liked about Tonkins' performance, and the reason I've given him a 7 is that made sure that in the second half, whenever we were in danger, he'd make sure he make a very long clearance, get the ball out of danger, and make sure we preserve obviously that 1 goal conceded. So rather than us conceding 2 more and having to come from, you know, 2-0 down. You know, rather than coming from 2-0 down, we come from 1-0 down by preserving that 1 goal conceded and then going on to win the game from there. So actually for me, in terms of our second half comeback, the fact that we stayed solid in the second half and the fact that we brought on reinforcements, the fact that the main thing for me, the fact that we stayed solid at the back was quite important for us in terms of going forth and going on to win the game. But to be honest, obviously we know that he's one of these players, he's quite injury prone, but for me personally, looking at the game, obviously it's quite good that he's getting a long run of games, because we're now starting to see that if he gets a chance in a team and he's not injured, he's actually a really quality player, and we're now starting to see that with the long run of games he's getting. And to be honest, we need him to keep going on with this type of form. So obviously it's great that he's in form at the minute, but because we've got the likes of Dann and Sakho out injured, and obviously we may bring in a centre back in January, but the fact that we've got these players injured, we need to make sure that Tompkins can not only stay injury free but can continue this kind of form, because this sort of leadership and this sort of defensive solidity he brings to the side is going to be really important in the next few weeks, until we get another centre back reinforcement or until other players come back from injury, because at the moment he's performing really well, but hopefully he can carry the form on. But to be honest, for me, obviously I've given him a 7, but the way, just to sort of sum up his performance, is he knitted the back line together. So obviously him playing as centre back, I personally would have liked him to be the captain, but Cabaye got it. Nothing against that, and obviously when Cabaye went off, Milivojevic got it. But I still thought Tompkins, you know, knitted the back line together. He commanded everyone well, and in terms of being a leader of the back four, I thought he'd done a great job of that in making sure that the fullbacks knew what they were doing, whether that was PVA, Jeffrey Schlupp, or Foster Mensah. So he made sure that them players knew what they had to do, and also him and Martin Kelly, they got their positioning quite right in the game. So really for me, James Tompkins, another solid performance from him. You know, like I've said already, it's great that he's got this run of games now where he's not got injured and he's performing well. And like I've said, with the injuries we've got at the back, it's really important that he carries on this form. But James Tompkins here, a 7 for him. Nothing really to comment on for the first half really, but he was fairly solid in that. And then in the second half, it was really important to us coming back into the game with the number of clearances he made. Now to move on to the other centre-back, Martin Kelly, who I am going to give a 7. Like Tompkins, not much to say about the first half. Reliable and read the second half well. So Martin Kelly here, obviously I've given him a 7, and his performance was quite similar to the one of Tompkins, purely because of how solid they were. And actually, as a partnership, I think they work quite well together. But, you know, there isn't really too much to note about the first half. You know, yes, you could comment about the goal, but, you know, he played against City really well. He played against City, you know, one of my man of the match shortlist, giving him a 9 out of 10. So really, he performed so well against City, and much like Tompkins, was really tired, so nothing really you could do in terms of blaming him for the goal. But the thing that I liked about his game is, although obviously he's quite a scapegoat for quite a lot of Palace fans, but actually now he's playing at centre back, he's looking quite reliable, he's doing a job there, he's making sure he can clear the danger, he's coming up with really important blocks. And although, because he weren't really troubled in this game, although he didn't have to do that, it's great to see him that actually he's coming into the side and is being quite reliable. But in terms of his second half performance, unlike the first where he was fairly quiet, he read the second half really well. So much like Tompkins in terms of preserving the 1 goal we conceded, as opposed to us going on to concede more, we kept our heads up, and I thought that Martin Kelly read the game in the second half really well and made sure that we went on to win the game, you know, going forward. But the only reason, obviously, he started in the game, obviously he wouldn't be the first choice centre-back, is because, obviously, Scott Dann got injured, so he came into the side. And once again, you know, I've said this week in, week out now, when he's come off the bench or when he's played, it's just another game where it just shows that I'd rather him play at centre-back than right-back. And that's purely because he plays so much better when he's at centre-back than he is at right-back. And I think that's purely because it's probably down to pace, the fact that he isn't the fastest full-back. But also, I just think it's because he's so tall, because he's quite physical reasonably, I think that actually being a centre-back actually fits him better. But Martin Kelly here, you know, much like Tompkins, a fairly solid performance, couldn't do too much about the goal. And in terms of the second half performance, in keeping the deficit at 1-0 and helping us to go on and win the game, I think it was quite important. So a 7 for him, I think, is a good result. Now to move on to the left-back, Jeffrey Schlupp, who I am going to give a 6. A lot of the play seemed to come down his side of the pitch. A good battle against Davis. Got forward when he could. Taken off just after the hour mark as Bakary Sako came on. So Jeffrey Schlupp, obviously he was injured against City, so he wasn't involved in that game. But before obviously he got injured, he wasn't necessarily at the best of form. So really coming back into the side here today, there was little expectation as to what he would do, purely because he hasn't necessarily been the most informed player, and obviously because he was injured. But I thought that against City, you know, Van Aanholt done a fantastic job, and actually I did argue as to whether Van Aanholt should start above Jeffrey Schlupp. But obviously from this showing, obviously Van Aanholt is a much better player in terms of what I've seen in the last few games. But I still think Jeffrey Schlupp can do a job there. But I think that this game, whether it's because he's just come back from injury or whether it's because he hasn't been in the team for a few weeks, whatever it was, this was sort of a lacklustre performance from him. But maybe you could say that because you could argue he was the weak link in the side, quite a lot of the attacks were coming down Southampton, or down that side of the pitch, and Southampton were attacking down that side, and especially Davis. I thought him and Schlupp had a good battle down that flank. But like I've said already, you know, after Van Aanholt had a fantastic performance at left back against City, it's quite hard obviously for Jeffrey Schlupp to replicate that. But because the whole team was quite lacklustre and because he came back from injury, it seemed to have an effect on him, and he weren't fantastic in the game. But the thing I liked about his performance is the fact that he tried to get forward as much as possible. And although he wasn't really successful, because whenever we went forward, we just gave the ball away, gave possession away, and Southampton counted on us. And that was especially in the first half. So although we weren't doing fantastic going forward and we weren't making meaningful chances, at least he was trying to go forward. And that's something, you know, before he got injured a few weeks ago, I was saying that actually, if he needs to improve his game by going forward. Yes, you've got to defend first, but as a fullback, if you've got pace, you've got to try and help and support, you know, the attacking line. And that's something that he did do in this game, but because quite a lot of the team were quite lethargic in the game, he obviously didn't have the chance to do that. Now obviously he got taken off, not necessarily because he was having a terrible game, but purely because he was having not the best game, weren't really having an influence. So he brought on Bakary Sako and obviously moved Patrick van Aanholt back to left back. And actually I thought that change with someone, obviously with Bakary Sako up front and moving Van Aanholt to a defensive role, that little bit of injection of energy just gave us a little bit more in the second half. And that's not to say that Jeffrey Schlupp played bad, it just seemed that actually as soon as we took him off, a bit more energy in PVA and Sakho just gave us a little bit more oomph, and actually it did help us to get something from the game, because on the hour mark I believe it was still 1-0 to Southampton. So really Jeffrey Schlupp weren't really having an impact on that game, and as soon as we brought on the super sub Bakary Sako, he obviously made an impact, and when Van Aanholt moved to left back, he also made an impact there. But like I've said already, I've given him a 6, and obviously he did miss the City game, and to be honest, it did look like he could do with more of a rest. Obviously coming back from injury, it looks like he's still a little bit off being back to full fitness, and unusually he looked lethargic, because he's normally one of these players who you know, his performances are quite consistent, and he never looks terrible and he never looks great, and usually his sort of energy levels are quite consistent. But in this game, quite unusually, he looked quite tired. So whether that's because he's just come back from injury, or whether it's just he's just out of form, you know, whatever it is, he didn't perform that well in the game. But Jeffrey Schlupp here, I've given him a 6, although quite a lot of the attacks from Southampton came down his side, especially from Davis. He done alright to combat that, and actually going forward, although he done well to actually get forward in the first place, nothing really came of it, and obviously he got taken off in the second half. But Jeffrey Schlupp here, I've given him a 6. Do comment below whether you think Jeffrey Schlupp or Patrick van Aanholt will continue to take the role at left back. Now to move on to the midfielder Luka Milivojevic, who I am going to give a 9. Had a bit of the ball and tried to kick-start an attack on the counter. Seemed up for the battle and held the midfield well, putting his foot in when needed. Scored a fantastic first time effort from 25 yards out. McArthur in the Saints goal didn't move, the match winner. So Milivojevic here, you know, he was really crucial in terms of helping us keep a clean sheet against City. And once again here, although he seemed quite tired and quite lethargic and quite lacklustre in the game, actually he put in another fantastic performance, hence why I've given him a 9. But the thing that I liked about his performance here is that in comparison to the City game where he was playing quite defensive, he had quite a lot of the ball here against Southampton. And although that Southampton in the first half had about 60% of the ball, obviously they had quite a lot of possession. Although they had a lot of the ball, whenever we had the ball, and especially Luka, he tried to sort of kick-start counter-attack. So quite a lot of the time he was putting long balls out wide to Wilf, to Townsend, to Benteke as well. And although none of them came to anything, because quite a lot of them were mishit, at least when he had the ball, and he had quite a lot of it, at least he was trying to kickstart an attack, because really Southampton were playing much better than we were in the first half, purely because we were a bit tired. And that's the thing really that disappointed me, really, is obviously we can understand the players being tired, but the fact that Milivojevic, we know on his day he can put in a really good long pass, but in this game most of his balls were mishit and obviously were, you know, went out of play and didn't really get to the wingers. But to be honest, he seemed up for the battle. You know, although he was really tired, he seemed like he was a player who was ready to give everything for the team, run himself, you know, run in front of a bus for the team. He'd done whatever he could for the team, and actually I thought he held the midfield well. You know, him with McArthur and Cabaye, although Cabaye weren't fantastic, I thought that McArthur and Milivojevic done fantastic in terms of winning that midfield battle. And although we didn't win it in the first half, in the second half where we pushed on to try and get the equaliser and eventually the winner, I think that he was quite crucial in terms of keeping that midfield together, keeping it quite solid to make sure we don't concede other goals, and also keeping it quite solid so we can set up attacks. And he was someone who, much like in the City game, he put in a foot when needed. So whenever he had to make a tackle, or he had to stop an attack, or whenever he had to make a block, he was there to do it. So whenever he was needed to do it, he would do that. So although his defensive performance weren't fantastic because he was a bit tired, he obviously scored the winner for Palace, which was an absolutely fantastic goal. You know, obviously we could say that McArthur's goal was quite good, obviously because he's hit it first time top corner, but the goal from Milivojevic from about 25 yards out was fantastic. You know, nice little bit of wing play down the right hand side between Townsend and Sakho. Sakho run into the box, lays the ball back to Townsend. Townsend puts a fantastic ball in front of the penalty, in front of the box. Milivojevic doesn't even think about it, hits it first time, lovely curl onto it into the bottom left hand corner. Fantastic goal from about 25 yards out. And if you look back at the replays, the ex-Palace keeper McCarthy, he didn't even move, which shows how much of a good quality shot it is. You know, McCarthy had no chance to save it because of the pace it was on, the fact that he hit it first time, and obviously the fact that it went so far in the corner with the goal. It was fantastic. And you know, if you had to use a word or a phrase to describe his performance, although he wasn't fantastic in the game, you would say he was the match winner, because although he didn't have that much influence on the game in terms of what he did against City, where he was absolutely phenomenal, he was less so here. But the fact that he scored that fantastic winner, which, you know, yes, Sakho's goal was fantastic against Leicester, but now I think Milivojevic takes over as the goal of the season for me, because it was an absolutely fantastic goal. And like I've said, match winner, he was the match winner, and that's why I've given him a 9. Because if I had to rate his overall performance and obviously his influence in kick-starting attacks, I probably would have given him maybe a 7, maybe an 8 at a push. But I still thought, because he played reasonably well and then scored the absolute screamer, that's why I've given him a 9. And it's very rare, obviously, other than against City, where I give players 9s, but his performance here was fantastic. The fact that he was almost one of the most tired players in the first half, still came out in the second half and battled, and obviously got that fantastic equaliser. Oh, sorry, the equaliser, the winner, after McArthur had scored the equaliser. But the thing about his performance, obviously away from the performance, obviously Cabaye went off at half-time. Milivojevic took the armband, and I've discussed this the last few weeks. You know, I think that either Tompkins, Luka, Cabaye, one of these players could take the armband, that's fine. I thought Cabaye done an alright job, although he looked really, really tired. Milivojevic took the armband, and he seemed to relish the chance in the response. He seemed to relish the chance and the responsibility. You know, he took the armband off Cabaye, and it didn't let that affect his game. And I thought he led the team really well. And to be honest, if Cabaye is going to be one of these players that he's losing his legs, he can't really run as much as he used to. If that's going to be the case going forward, and maybe even though we now have games that are weeks apart, if that now means that he doesn't get back his fitness and he has to come off in the 60th minute every game, then I don't see no reason why Luka couldn't take the captaincy, because he'd done a great job there. But the thing about it is equaliser. Obviously, it was great. Obviously, that he's not the equaliser, the winner. The great thing about that is it's a brilliant strike that's worthy of winning any game. Because if the game is at 1-0 and you score that goal, even though your performance is terrible, that goal alone is worthy of winning the game. And the fact that we came back, we were at 1-1, the fact that he scored that, for that goal alone and the quality of that goal, I think you could say that we did deserve to win the game. But Milivojevic here, you know, yes, he was fantastic against City. He was less so here in terms of his performance, and if I had to rate his performance, it'd probably be a 7 or an 8. But the reason I've given him a 9 is the fact that at least he was trying to kickstart counter-attacks in the first half. He seemed up for the battle, even though he looked knackered, and he held the midfield up really well. And the main reason for me that I've bumped it up to a 9 is obviously the fact that he scored an absolutely fantastic screamer from 25 yards out. And like I said, I think that this could be one of our goals of the season, if not goal of the month, because I've seen some of the other strikes from other clubs, you know, over the last few months, and actually this has got to be up there with one of the goals of the month, purely because of the quality of it and the fact that it was a first time finish. But the main thing really about his performance, if you put the performance and the goal aside, the fact that he took the captaincy off Yohan Cabaye at the break, the fact that he relished a chance and seemed to improve with that responsibility was great to see. So do comment below what you thought about his goal, and also whether you do think he should keep the captaincy in the next few weeks. Now to move on to Yohan Cabaye, who I am going to give a 6. Saw a lot of the ball early on and showed some good touches, taken off at the break for Patrick van Aanholt. So Yohan Cabaye here, I've given him a 6, and when you consider, much like quite a lot of the players in the squad, he only played against Man City a few days ago and he was fantastic in this game. In this game here against Southampton, I've given him a 6 because although he saw quite a lot of the ball early on, it was quite poor performance from him. And for me personally, looking back at the game, I purely think it is because he was knackered. Because if you look back at the replay, the highlights and replays of certain parts of the game, yes, he saw a lot of the ball and he was trying to do stuff with it, but he was so slow, so sluggish. And for me, looking back at that, it's like, yeah, you can clearly see that he's played two games within the space of a few 48 hours. So really for me, it was quite obvious why he wasn't playing well, because he was really tired. And to be honest, that was quite evident in the fact that he was taken off at half time for Patrick van Aanholt. And much like what I mentioned with the substitution of Jeffrey Schlupp, when Van Aanholt came on, he actually changed the game and there was a lot more pace in the game. So although Cabaye, yes, he was doing an alright job and he was captaining the side alright, I think it was the right decision to bring him on, purely because he looked knackered and also he was slowing our game down. And when you consider we came back to win the game, I obviously don't want to say Cabaye wouldn't have helped us win the game, but I think that if we still had Cabaye on the pitch, we would have still been quite sluggish and quite lethargic in the game, and we probably wouldn't have gone on to win the game. But to be honest, he obviously got given the captain's armband and it seemed to suit him. He seemed to fit into the role really well. And the word I suppose you could use for his performance was jaded, because he did look quite jaded throughout the first half, and perhaps you could argue he probably shouldn't have started the game. And I personally think he was knackered and he only started the game because you really needed him to be the captain. Because if it was my choice, I would have started Greenbrook because he's a bit younger, he's got a bit more energy, and actually him alongside Luka in the Man City game actually played really well. But to be honest, because the only reason he had to start is because we haven't got any sort of suitable replacements to call upon. Yes, I mentioned Greenbrook and we could have had him start, but you know, he may have also been tired after the Man City game, so you can't really just say that a swap, you know, a straight swap there. But to be honest, Yohan Cabaye here, I've given him a 6. No real influence on the game, although he did see quite a lot of the ball, and obviously he did show a few good touches, but he looked completely knackered, and obviously because of that, he didn't really have that much influence in the game. And obviously got taken off at half time. But do comment below what you thought about his performance and whether you think a 6 is a fair result when you consider how lacklustre he was in the first half. And also do comment below whether you think he should keep the captain's armband. Now to move on to James McArthur, who I am going to give an 8. Not too much impact in the first period, but his passes and touches have been spot on. Came up trumps from close range for the equaliser, shooting high into the net from close range after Benteke's header towards the back post. So James McArthur here, I've given him an 8, and unlike the performance of Yohan Cabaye where it was quite lethargic, McArthur was quite the opposite, and I personally think it's because McArthur didn't play in the City game. And that's obviously because he was injured, so he didn't play that game, and because of that he obviously came into this game here, fresh legs, and much like someone like Jeffrey Schlupp, came back from injury, and actually they still done a pretty good shift here. And to be honest, he was sort of the opposite to Cabaye. Cabaye, playing in the number 10 role, saw quite a lot of the ball early on in the game in the first half, whereas McArthur on the other hand, playing more or less alongside Luka, didn't really have too much impact in the first half. But the thing I liked about his game is, although Cabaye had good touches, I thought McArthur had good touches, but he also had good passes. So whereas someone like Luka and Cabaye, they weren't really passing the ball well, whereas McArthur on the other hand, being a little bit more fitter, a little bit more fresh, having not played against City, he was spreading the ball out wide a lot more. And to be honest, most of his passes were spot on, so that was great to see. But the thing I really liked about his performance is, you know, he's always one of these players who's really underrated and someone you can call upon to score a goal. And obviously he was the one who came up trumps from close range to obviously score the equaliser. So, you know, the goal all came from a free kick. Obviously Patrick van Aanholt on the left hand side whipped in a free kick. Easy clearance for Southampton. They were able to clear it with the centre backs. Obviously Andros Townsend's picked it up on the edge of the box, whipped in across to Benteke at the far post. He's obviously nodded it in, nodded it back into the box, Benteke's headed it back into the box to McArthur, and obviously McArthur, first time finish, or you could say on the volley, because obviously he's obviously had to try and jump to hit the ball, but it was a great finish. You know, the fact that Benteke headed the ball down from Andros Townsend headed it across goal to McArthur at the back post. You know, great finish from McArthur, great composure, and it was obviously great to get the equaliser. But the fact that we've got players who are not only aware in terms of getting in the right positions, but the fact that when they get in the right position and a chance comes, the fact that they're able to take that chance is great to see. Because I'm sure maybe 2 or 3 other players, maybe if there was a centre-back up for the free kick, maybe if a centre-back was on the end of that head down by Benteke, maybe he wouldn't have scored it. But the fact that McArthur was there, he took it quite calmly into the top corner from close range. Fantastic finish there. But to be honest, you know, obviously he come back into the starting 11. Obviously he didn't play against City and he's been out a few weeks with an injury. But as we always know with the Scottish international, he always works hard, and he's done that in this game. And he works hard up and down the pitch. So he doesn't just do defensive work and works alongside Luka, but in this game he also went further forward, you know, linked up with someone like Benteke, Zaha, Townsend, Sakho when he came on. He was linking with these players, linking with Caballo when he was on the pitch. So actually the thing I liked about McArthur's performance, and all of his performances whenever he puts on a Palace shirt, is the fact that he works hard for the team, whether it's defensive or offensively, and deservedly got on the score sheet, because I thought his performance was really great up until that point. But then he goes on and scores the goal which equalises, brings us back into the game. That was good as well. And when you consider how much pressure we were putting on Southampton towards the, you know, the middle stage of the second half, we had to get a goal, otherwise the game would have passed. So it was great that we got a goal at that point. Great finish, and obviously that helped us obviously to go on and win the game. But James McArthur here, I've given him an 8. Obviously his performance is not as good as Luka's, who I obviously gave a 9, because obviously the goal was less spectacular. But obviously he didn't have much influence and he didn't have much to do in the first half, but his passes and touches were excellent. And the fact that his second half performance improved, and the fact that he was in the right place at the right time to score the equaliser was also great, with what was from which was actually a great finish. You know, first time on the volley, top corner, fantastic goal from him. And, you know, do comment below whether you think the game against Brighton in the FA Cup, obviously we're going to rotate a few players, and we might bring in a few players in the transfer window, so we may see a few new faces. But do comment below whether you think McArthur should keep his place, because maybe you might need that energy and that hard work against Brighton to break them down, or whether you think someone like Riedewald alongside Luka, maybe they should start against Brighton. So do comment below whether you think McArthur should keep his place in the squad, and also who you think will start against Brighton. Now to move on to Wilfried Zaha, who I am going to give a 7. Good chance early on running against his marker and getting a shot away. Fed a lovely ball into Benteke on the counter. Always a threat as you know he can be. Went up front with Benteke for the second half. Missed a massive chance in front of goal on 88 minutes to make it 3-1. So Wilfried Zaha here, I've given him a 7, and much like his performances have been this season, it was another good offensive performance from him, and unlike a few players on the pitch who played against City, it was quite surprising how much energy Zaha had in comparison to other players on the pitch, purely because you'd expect other players playing only 48 hours before to be quite tired and be quite lethargic, whereas Zaha, I still thought he was one of our biggest attacking threats in the first half. Now obviously I mentioned earlier on in the podcast about the fact that Southampton dominated the first half, and the fact that we didn't really get going quite early on in the first half because quite a lot of the players were tired. But still, I still thought that Zaha had quite a few good chances. And there was one chance in particular where he was running against his marker, once again showing his pace and the fact that he's not tired, and he obviously got a shot away. And although obviously nothing came from the shot, the fact that he was able to, quite early on in the game, get a chance in a game where actually we didn't have many chances in that half, was great to see. Now also there was another chance. Obviously it wasn't him getting a chance, but he put a lovely ball into Benteke on the counter-attack. So actually he's showing that he's not only looking for his own his own chances when he's playing out wide, but he's also looking to give the ball to Benteke, because Benteke is in desperate need of a goal, and in order for Benteke to play well we need to supply him. And obviously on that occasion, on the counter-attack, Benteke did well, obviously, or Zaha did well to get the ball to Benteke, but obviously nothing came from it. But like we know, he's always a threat, and obviously in this game, in a game which was quite lacklustre, especially in the first half, he's still done his best to try and get something from the game. Now obviously in the second half we had a change of formation, went to a 4-4-2, obviously brought Jeffrey Schlupp on for Yohan Cabaye, and obviously, brought Van Aanholt on for Yohan Cabaye, and he eventually moved into Jeffrey Schlupp's role. But obviously because of that, Van Aanholt went out wide, Townsend went out wide, and we had Zaha and Benteke up front, and that was for the majority of the second half. And obviously the fact that we went on to score 2 goals obviously proved that actually it had some sort of impact, because when we brought on another sub who came on for Schlupp eventually, we brought on Sakho, he went on one side, Townsend on the other, Van Aanholt back to left back. When we made that change, we got even more into the game, purely because it was a system that seemed to work better for us, and also it had a few more energetic players in that. And I personally think the introduction of Sakho and Van Aanholt, obviously Zaha wasn't having the best game, but it of course did help him, to get going in the game. But obviously in the second half, when he was playing up front, long ball from Hennessy, lovely clearance. Obviously it's Benteke and Zaha both in the box, a great chance to make it 3-1. And obviously Zaha, it was probably the perfect height to head the ball, not exactly too high and not exactly at knee height where you have to hit it. So he probably could have hit this on his head, dived a bit into it, tried to at least sort of do something to the ball, but instead he tried to hit it with his foot, and obviously as he's done that, he's hit the underneath of the ball, and obviously it's gone over. So great chance there, where actually if you look back at it, it probably would have been better for him to take it with his head and head it down, as opposed to trying to at least hit it on the volley. So in that instance, obviously it's great that he was able to get on the end of a good ball by Hennessy, but what we need to do in the future, if you get a chance like that, especially players like Wilf, who are not necessarily the best at hitting volleys, he's better at making runs into the box, we need to make sure that obviously Zaha will be able to know that actually on that occasion it actually, he needs to, head the ball, as opposed to try and kick it. But to be honest, obviously he found it quite difficult to sort of conduct his normal game, where he likes to run at fullbacks, and that's purely because the pitch was in quite a bad state. So really, running full pelt, you're going to be slipping everywhere. So really, I'm not making excuses for him, but you can understand him finding it quite difficult to conduct his usual game. But like I've said, although he did struggle at some parts in the game, he was still a good attacking threat, and obviously set up the early chance for himself, and had a few good balls for Benteke on the counter. But to be honest, obviously his performance was great, and that's why I've given him a 7. But it would have been so much better if he would have been able to get that goal late on in about the 80th minute to secure the points, because not only would it have put the game to bed, obviously 3-1 up with only 2 or 3 minutes to go, but also it would have been nice for Zaha to get another goal. But I've given him a 7 here. I think that's a fair result for him. Like I've said already, not necessarily the best attacking game from him, and obviously maybe the pitch had some part to play with that, but when he moved up front with Benteke in the second half, he improved quite a lot. And if he had taken that chance at the end properly, he probably would have ended the game with a goal, which probably would have been rightly deserved. Now to move on to Andros Townsend, who I am going to give an 8. First shot of the game on target after 6 minutes. Had another tipped over the post on the half-an-hour mark. Looked bright at times. Continued to be involved. He impressed all evening. So Andros Townsend here, I've given him an 8, and in comparison to the performance of Wilfried Zaha, Andros Townsend, obviously I don't know how he does it week in, week out, but he had another energetic performance here, and actually put in another good performance. And although I said that Wilfried Zaha was a threat, against Southampton going forward, and he obviously created a few chances for himself, I still thought that Andros Townsend was probably slightly a better attacking threat, and that's why I've given him the 8. Now the main reason really that he was the biggest attacking threat, and he was the actual guy who was trying to get things going, is because whenever he got onto the the edge of the area, he was trying to have shots, trying to create chances, and quite a lot of them resulted in Alex McArthur in the goal making a few saves. So as opposed to Zaha not taking his chances, Andros Townsend actually tested the keeper, and obviously was quite unlucky for them to get saved. So really, started the game early on. Obviously Zaha had his chance, but Andros Townsend also had a chance, his first shot on target within the first 6 minutes, and it was I believe it was a good save by McCarthy. So showing that actually, although Andros Townsend, he always runs his socks off and always gives 100% for the team, even though he played against City only a few 48 hours before the game, he still put in a fantastic performance here, full of energy, and actually, the fact that he was able to start the game so brightly was quite impressive. And then obviously, about the half an hour mark, he obviously had another chance where he hit another ball from quite a far distance, and obviously it got tipped over the post. So he's just showing that even though he looked quite, he looked bright quite early on, even though he was probably knackered from the fact that he played against Man City only a few hours before. And so actually, I thought he'd done really well in terms of taking that shot earlier on and having the other one tipped over the bar. And that's the thing I like about his performances, the fact that although sometimes he might not have the end product, he looks bright. Whereas in this game, he looked bright, even though we would suppose he'd be knackered, and also the fact that he was taking his chances. And that's something I've criticised him for this season. The fact that he's got the energy, he's got the determination, he's got the right attitude. It's just the fact that he hasn't had the end product. Whereas in this game here, unlike Zaha, who had the energy somehow, Andros Townsend had a little bit of final product. And obviously that resulted in him having the first shot of the game, and obviously having the other one tipped over the bar. And then in the second half, obviously he can continue to be involved, so he was putting himself about a bit, creating a few chances, and obviously he impressed all evening, to be honest. So although he was involved quite a lot in the second half as well, but if you look at his performance as a whole across the whole evening, he was probably one of the more impressive players. If not the best player on the pitch, he was still up there with one of the better players on the pitch, because for me, really, looking back at the game, he did impress. But the thing I like about his performance, he looks bright, he looks like he has loads of energy, but the thing I like is the fact that he's everywhere. He puts in a shift all over the pitch, so if he has to, when you consider Southampton had about 60% of the ball, when he had to, he'd go back and defend in the first half, and then obviously use his pace in the counter-attack. And, it's quite hard, obviously, to hold off full-backs and centre-backs, but I still thought on the counter-attack he done quite well, or he done what he could to obviously hold them off. And then, other than that, his second half contribution was his pass to Milivojevic in space to set up the winner. So yes, he obviously put the ball into the box for Benteke to head to McArthur, but the best assist and the actual assist he got, so the other one was a pre-assist, obviously him setting up the assister, but the pass for Milivojevic's goal, of course I've talked about how Milivojevic's goal was fantastic, the fact that he took it first time, it was from 25 yards, the curl on it, but also the pass from Andros Townsend was fantastic as well. The fact that Townsend received the ball on the right hand side from Sakho, the fact that Townsend could think quite quickly, find that ball to Milivojevic, the fact that he could put it on a plate to him, put it in the right position with the right accuracy, everything about that assist was great to see. And it was obviously great to see not only the goal, which was the winner, but also the fact that it was a team goal. The fact that, yes, it was a fantastic finish, but loads of members of the team were involved in terms of setting it up. So, for that assist and the fact that he set up the other goal, or set up Benteke to assist the other goal, that's the main reasons that I've given him the 8. Obviously, if it was for them alone, you would probably give him a 7. But the fact that he combined that with a bright performance overall, where he was everywhere, putting in a shift, obviously that's what moves it up to an 8. And when you consider, he only played against City a few days before, and the fact that he put in 100% effort there, you would expect him to be knackered here, but he's still put in a fantastic performance, and I just don't know how he has the stamina to do it, but it's amazing to see. And hopefully in the next few weeks, obviously with the big Brighton game coming up, with other games against Burnley I think it's coming up, it's going to be really important that he carries on this form, and obviously helps us to have an impact in them games. But Andros Townsend here, I think an 8 is a fair result. Now to move on to our final player and striker, Christian Benteke, who I'm going to give a 7. Didn't have a sniff in the first half, had some good touches and held the ball up well at times. His best chance came on 65 minutes, turning well and shooting low to force a great save. Turned provider for the equaliser, heading for McArthur to finish. So Christian Benteke here, I've given him a 7, and much like his good performance he put in against City at the weekend, where although people may say that he obviously didn't score and didn't get involved, he still had quite a lot of influence in terms of holding up the ball, getting other players involved, and in terms of just being a nuisance and chasing down and pressing the City back line. And he carried on that performance here, and that's why I've given him a 7 again. Now, much like quite a lot of the players, obviously, where we were quite tired in the first half until we brought on the substitutions, because of that, it was quite a lethargic, lacklustre first half, which meant that in the first half, Christian Benteke didn't really have a sniff, didn't really have any chances, which is quite understandable when you consider it wasn't just him playing badly in the first half, it was just an overall team thing where the team weren't really playing that well. But the thing that I liked about his performance second half, obviously where the team came out and, we were actually trying to have a go and actually trying to attack Southampton to get back into the game and obviously eventually go on to win it, is the fact that he had a few good touches. So much like McArthur, his touches were good, and also the fact that quite a lot of the time when we put up long balls, he'll hold them up the odd time. So the fact that he's able to not only have the good touch to get involved in play, but the fact that he can also hold up the ball and get others involved was great to see as well. Now there was one chance that he had, a big chance on about the 65th minute, where he was in the box, the ball was in the box, it was sort of just doing pinball inside the box, came to Benteke, he turned past the defender, shot low to the bottom corner, and obviously McArthur produced a really great save, great stretch to tip it out for a corner. So although people may criticise him because he doesn't really get that many chances, he done exactly what you would expect him to do there, turn a defender, have a shot, and some could argue he should have given it to another player, but looking back at it, I think it's not really selfish for him to think he could take the shot, because he was quite close to scoring it. It was just that McArthur made the great save. Now obviously we talk about Benteke, he's the striker, he's meant to be scoring goals, but in this game, although people have been criticising him of late, he did actually turn provider, so he got the assist for McArthur's goal. So I talked about Townsend putting in that delivery for Benteke at the far post. Benteke, obviously we know he's a great header of the ball, great header to McArthur across the face of goal. McArthur, great finish though. The fact that he obviously didn't get a goal in the game, but he had a few chances. The fact that he was able to get an assist almost makes up for that, because it's a team game and it's not just about one player scoring all the goals. It's all about players, if they're not scoring goals, they're helping the other teammates to obviously score goals. So it was great to see him obviously get the goal there. But to be honest, obviously he's been highly criticised recently, but the fact is, this win wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been for him. If it weren't for him being at the back post, heading that ball to McArthur, we wouldn't have scored the equaliser. And if it wasn't for his holding up play and his good touches, we probably wouldn't have had half the attacks we did in the second half, which obviously helped us to push on to get the win. So to be honest, although people may want to criticise him saying he can't head the ball or he's just a waste of money, actually if you look at his performances other than goals, when he has games like this where he performs well, actually you need to take note of the fact that yes, he's not scoring goals, but he's getting involved, and actually other than not scoring, he's actually having an overall good performance. But the thing for me that was good about Christian Benteke's performance, and the main reason I've given him a 7 as opposed to a 6 that some people may give him, even though I don't agree, you may give it to him because he weren't necessarily really involved, but it's purely the fact that he got the assist from McArthur's goal. Like I've said, ball from Townsend, great header across the box, and obviously McArthur to finish. So the main reason for me I've given him a 7 is, although yes he had good touches and held up the ball, but the main thing for me is the fact that he headed that chance to McArthur, obviously for McArthur to score, and also he also had a few chances that he could have scored himself. So overall, a good performance from the Belgian, and hopefully a performance like this where he didn't necessarily get a goal or didn't have that much influence in the game, but in a game where actually he was one of our better players overall, across the course of the whole game. The fact that he obviously set up a goal rather than being selfish and looking for his own chance was great to see. So hopefully in the next few weeks with the game against Brighton, hopefully he can play a big role in these games and hopefully start firing again. Now to move on to the subs, Patrick van Aanholt and Bakary Sako. So just to go through, quickly the substitutes. Obviously I've talked briefly, or even quite a lot you could argue, about some of the subs already and how they changed the game when they came on for other people. But Patrick van Aanholt, I've given him a 6. Obviously he came on for Kabay at half time, and he obviously started as a left winger, and then when Schlupp went off for Bakary Sako, obviously he moved back to left back, and obviously he did okay, nothing special, but that sort of a little bit of extra pace and urgency and that little bit more energy obviously helped us to push on and get something from the game. And then the same could be said about Bakary Sako, who I've given a 7. He obviously came on the pitch to give us a little bit more threat going forward, and obviously if you look back at the game, at that time it was almost like we were playing with a front 4, where we were playing with Wilf, Benteke, Townsend and Sakho, and I thought them 4 complemented each other really well and actually gave us a little bit more attacking oomph in the team. And actually the thing I liked about Bakary Sako's performance is the fact that he caused problems, and although he may not necessarily have fantastic quality, he makes a good impact. He comes off the bench, causes problems for the opposition, and yeah, just really be a nuisance of himself. But the thing about his performance, which is great and why I've given him a 7, is purely the fact that he was the catalyst for our win, because he was the one who was driving at the host, forcing the game to Southampton at every opportunity, and at the end of the day, he was the game changer. He came on the pitch, he was that catalyst, he was the player who came on, gave us that lot of energy and pace, and helped us to push on and win the game. So really, you've got to give credit to Roy Hodgson, because he noticed in the first half that the system he was playing wasn't working. He changed from a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2, and obviously brought on these 2 substitutions, and obviously that changed the game, and we eventually went on to win the game. So credit to Roy Hodgson on these few changes, and hopefully these players, you know, Benteke, Zaha, hopefully these players can continue this form into the you know, the next few weeks, and hopefully, especially Benteke, hopefully we can start firing in more goals. Now, to be honest, you know, just to give a small summary of the game, obviously do comment below whether you agree with what I'm going to say, and also do comment below with your, you know, your match thoughts and your sort of match summaries as well. But to be honest, we obviously went a goal down courtesy of a player who hadn't scored in quite a long time. But to be honest, we knew that this was going to happen. You know, we knew that we like ending players' bad runs of form, and obviously he hadn't scored in nearly a year. And obviously Shane Long goes forth and scores. So it wasn't really surprising that we went down a goal quite early on in someone who hasn't scored in quite a long time. And to be honest, it looked like it was going to be one of our second loss in the space of 3 games. You know, it looked like, because we were so tired and because we didn't see much energy coming off the bench, it looked like we were probably going to lose this game 1-0, maybe even 2-0. They might nick a goal in the second half. But the fact that we've got this pride and passion to actually come back in the second half and fight, and you know, the game's not ended, the fact that we've got that determination to get back into the game, and we have these attributes is great. And although obviously having pride and passion isn't enough, you know, on its own to see teams win games, if you have that in a team, that's really going to help you, not only if you're 1 goal down at the break, but also it's just going to help you generally in terms of starting the game and actually trying to be up for the game and getting the most from the game. Because really, it's great that we saw pride and passion, these sort of attributes in the second half, but it took the tactical change from Roy Hodgson to change the way that we played, and the fact that the fact that he changed our system, the way we were playing, obviously that went on to change the game, because he ensured that, if you look at the stats, this is really quite impressive, that we've only lost once in 11 games. So you've got to give credit to Roy Hodgson, because obviously in this game we were 1-0 behind. We could have lost that record, obviously losing only 1 game in 11. We would have, you know, lost 2. We would have lost 2 games in only a few days, and it wouldn't have been the best thing. But the fact that Hodgson made that change and, you know, set up the Eagles to obviously ensure that we made sure that we kept it at 1 loss in 11 was absolutely fantastic. And that's what I like to see from Roy Hodgson. He's one of these managers who gets a team ready for the game, gets them up for the game, and he brings that passion and that pride back into the side. And even if we are 1-0 down, 2-0 down at the break, he brings up the team, and he's built the team around so that even if we're like that, we've still got that determination and drive not to give up, not to let our heads drop, and continue, you know, on to get the results. But do comment below what you thought. But that was just sort of my little summaries of the game. But all I've got to say, you know, the final thing before the man of the match is that the recovery continues. So now to move on to my man of the match award. But before I do that and give you my man of the match and who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations I put forward for the award. So much like the game at the weekend against Man City, where we put in a fantastic performance, this game, although the second half performance was very good in terms of us getting back into the game and obviously going on to win the game, but our first half performance as a result of the game against Man City, it was quite lacklustre. Quite a lot of the players were quite tired. So if you were to look at the game, just the first half on its own, it would be pretty hard to pick 4 players as the man of the match, purely because everyone was playing quite bad. But the players I've picked are the players who actually, when we went into the second half, they had a bit of a break at half time, and they actually came out rejuvenated after half time. And that's why I've put them on the shortlist, because, you know, some of these players, you could argue that they didn't have a good first half, but in the second half, whether they scored a goal or whether they assisted a goal or whatever they did in the game, they obviously done better in the second half. And even though some of the players on here played against Man City on Sunday, played really well, in fact, even though they played really well and they were knackered, and you can see how knackered they were on the pitch, they still put in a solid performance, and that's what I liked about their game, and that's why they're on the man of the match shortlist. But the 4 players I put forward for the award were James McArthur, Luka Milivojevic, Andros Townsend and Bakary Sako. So all of these players, like I've said, they had an influence on the game in different ways. And just to start with McArthur, obviously in terms of his performance, he wasn't fantastic in the first half, but was one of the better players in terms of the 11 that were playing on the pitch at the time. And the thing I liked about his game, his passing and touches were good, and in terms of controlling the midfield, he was probably one of the more influential midfielders. And to be honest, he obviously scored the equaliser, and you know, when you score an equaliser to come back into the game and you eventually go on to win the game, the equaliser is quite important. So the fact that he scored it, and it was a great finish on the volley as well, that was great as well. And obviously because he put it in top corner, that made it even better. And that's why he's on the shortlist, because he scored the goal. And obviously his passing and his touches were great. Obviously Luka Milivojevic here, you know, obviously like he always does, holds the midfield well. He puts in a foot and puts a tackle in when needed. But much like McArthur, he didn't have the best first half and he looked quite sloppy and there were a few misplaced passes. But in the second half, even though he was knackered because he played against Man City, he still put himself about in the midfield. Held the midfield together quite well, protected the back four in terms of stopping us conceding in the second half. So defensively he done alright, but that fantastic goal it was just phenomenal, the goal he scored, because not only was it first time finish, but the curl on it to get it bottom corner, the accuracy, the power on it, everything about it was absolutely fantastic. And when you consider all of his goals he scored for Palace have been from the penalty spot, it was great to see him score one from outside the box, and I believe that's our first goal this season from outside the box. But we knew when we signed him from Olympiacos, he scored loads of goals like that for Olympiacos, so it was great to see the quality there. So the reason I put him on the man of the match shortlist is because he obviously held the midfield well, made loads of tackles, but the main thing is for that fantastic goal he scored, because it wasn't just, long range effort where you put it top bins. The amount of curl on it and the fact that it was a first time finish was great as well. And to be honest, it was the match winner, because his performance, obviously the fact that he didn't get tired and he carried on till the end, battled till the end, the fact that he had that determination and that drive to carry on was fantastic as well. Now Andros Townsend, another player I've put on the shortlist, and to be honest, he was one of the better players in the first half. And when you consider how much effort he put into the Man City game where he was running all over the pitch, I'm quite surprised that he wasn't knackered. And unlike some of the other players in the first half, he looked one of the brighter players and actually was trying to have a go at Southampton. And although Southampton had all of the possession in the first half and they were playing quite well, stringing loads of passes together, we were playing quite poor in the first half. But Andros Townsend was one of our brighter players. And there were quite a few chances where he obviously shot towards goal, and either some of them went just over or cleared and deflected, or Alex McCarthy in the goal made a few good saves. So not only was Townsend at least trying to create chances, but he was also, because Southampton were playing quite well in the first half, mainly because of that, he obviously had to result to quite a few shots from outside the box. And unlike Lucas where it went in, obviously Andros Townsend was quite unlucky because McCarthy made a few good saves. But to be honest, he looked quite bright at times, and much like other players, even though he was knackered, his second half performance was even better. He obviously impressed me all evening. He was always involved, and he was the one who got the assist for Milivojevic, because he was involved with some wing play with Bakary Sako. Sakho ran into the box, backed the ball back to Townsend. Townsend put a ball about 30 yards out away from the box, just in front of the box, and obviously Milivojevic just hit it first time. So not only was he good at creating his own chances and having shots on goal, but also the thing that he's on the man of the match shortlist for is, yes, his effort was good in the game, but the main thing is that assist, because it was actually, the great accuracy to get it to Milivojevic so he could take it first time. And the final player on my shortlist is Bakary Sako. Now, although he didn't play against the City game and many of us were asking for him to start the game, he obviously didn't. But coming into the game, he came off the bench, and what an impact he had, because he came on, and obviously because we wanted to add a little bit more threat, so we changed to a 4-4-2, Zaha Benteke up front, Bakary Sako and Andros Townsend out wide. So we changed our formation about a bit, give us a little bit more threat and a little bit more pace and energy up front, and it certainly worked because we went on to score 2 games. But the thing I really liked about Sako's performance, which put him above any of the other players, is the fact that yes, he didn't start the game, and yes, he didn't play against City, so he had a little bit more energy, but he done something which we didn't do in the first half, which was causing problems for Southampton. Because me looking back at the game, the main reason we went back and we actually won the game is purely because of the energy that Sakho brought to the side. The fact that he was holding up players at the back post so that Benteke could get a clear header to McArthur for the equaliser. The fact that he was the guy who passed to Townsend, who passed to Milivojevic for the goal. So actually, them 2 instances, he was involved in not necessarily directly, but helping the goals, or helping to set up the goals, but also, the fact that he just caused problems, and the fact that he was driving forward, using his energy to create a lot of chances. And another thing I like about his game, which no other player did, because they obviously were quite tired, didn't have the energy to run to the corner, but towards the end of the game, something I liked about Sako's performance is that towards the end of the game, a few minutes left, we've just equalised, so what does he do? Brings it to the corner flag. Fantastic, don't lose the ball, there's 3 defenders around him, just hold the ball there and wait for the game to peter out. And that was the thing I liked about his performance. Not only the fact that he was involved in the goals and he obviously caused problems and made a good impact, and the fact that he changed the game, but also the fact that he was quite clever with his gameplay, in the fact that he made sure that he could not necessarily waste, but run down the clock as much as possible to make sure we go on to win the game. But in terms of these 4 players, and obviously why I've put them on the shortlist, just a little summary there that I've just given you. But you know, McArthur and Milivojevic, in terms of doing well in that midfield battle, obviously less so in the first half, but they were fantastic in the second half. Obviously Andrew Townsend and Bakary Sako, both for their attacking influence. Obviously Sakho for helping to set up the goals, both goals, the first and the second, and obviously Andrew Townsend for giving the assist to Milivojevic. So all of these players had a great influence on the game, but like I said at the beginning, because it was quite a lacklustre performance in the first half, and yes, the second half was better, but there was only a few players that really shone out for me who didn't play terribly in the first half and played fantastic in the second half, and obviously these 4 players done that. But for me, although some people on Twitter may debate this, I think for me, although Milivojevic scored the match winner, obviously won us the game with a fantastic strike from 30 yards, which is undoubtedly probably going to be one of the goals of the season, I'm going to give it to Bakary Sako. So congratulations, Bakary. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was another solid performance from you coming off the bench. And when we consider he was injured for the City game, he came in and it was as if he had been playing, you know, the last few games, because he didn't look out of touch from his injury, and actually he played quite well. But the only reason I've given it to him, other than Milivojevic, is purely because, yes, Milivojevic was the match winner, but Bakary Sako changed the game. He was the guy who made an impact off the bench and changed the course of the game. Because personally, looking back at the game, looking back at the highlights, if it wasn't for Sakho coming off the bench and bringing on that extra energy, we probably wouldn't have gone on to win the game. So Bakary Sako, great performance from him. In my opinion, fully worth getting the man of the match award. But obviously, you know, special mentions do go to Luka, Andros and James McArthur, obviously for their performances as well. But do comment below who you thought the man of the match was, and whether you do agree with my player ratings I gave you a minute ago. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got interviews with Roy Hodgson, Luka Milivojevic, James McArthur and Bakary Sako following the game.
James, Luka, many congratulations. James, how did you do it? What a comeback.
Character, they're a good side, they find pockets. First half we were maybe too deep, second half we got right at them, and I thought we deserved it.
Luka, a great goal to win it. Have you scored too many better than that?
Yeah, it's true, but I have to say we played very well like a team. We show character, like Maka said, and we are very happy. This is massive for us, these 3 points.
Honestly, how much did that tonight for you make up for the penalty miss at the weekend?
I have to be honest, I didn't sleep last 2 nights. It was very hard for me to miss penalty in last minute, especially because that was against Man City on our stadium. But thanks to God I scored, our team win. I'm so happy now.
He's made amends tonight, hasn't he?
Yeah, but his last performance was unbelievable. So we let him off with it. We give him a bit of banter, but we let him off with it. We're trusting him to do the next one as well.
When your goal got you right back into it, did you feel you could win it from there?
Yeah, we had all the ascendancy in the match. They started to come out and create holes, and when you do that against us, when you've got players like Townsend and Sakho on the wing, then it plays into your hands.
Luka, what does this performance, this result, say about this team you're part of, the players around you?
Many times this season we turn result, and like Maka said, I have to say one more time, we show character, we play until the end, we never give up, and we are very happy, satisfied. Now we have 5 days to rest. It was very hard. We didn't have only 1 day to rest. It was very hard to recover after City. We cover a lot, we run a lot, but we now have time to rest a little bit.
James, if you recall, Southampton were Roy's first opponents when he first came on board. What belief does the progress you've made since then give all the players about the way the season can pan out?
Yeah, it's been a big turnaround. From there, we've grown in confidence. The manager's got us playing a certain way. We look solid. And normally when you play solid, you lose that attacking threat, and we've not done that. We look very dangerous on the attack as well.
Terrific result tonight, boys. Well done.
Bakary, 1 defeat in 11. The run goes on. Tonight, an excellent comeback to come away with all 3 points.
Yeah, that's a massive win for us tonight, coming back after 1-0 down, winning 2-1. I think the lads did fantastic tonight to win that game.
Yourself, coming off from the bench, it seemed the second half we had a lot more energy about us and a lot more sort of drive to push forward.
Yeah, I think I was fresh because I didn't play against City. So the gaffer wanted me to bring some energy, and I think that's what I did. And I'm very happy to help the team tonight.
And the goals, first of all, the one from close range from Maka. It was a good move, and the ball got over the top, and he made no mistake.
Yeah, that's a good move. And Maka is always in a good position to score goals. So I was very delighted when I saw the ball on the back of the net.
And then, of course, talk us through that second from Luka. Quite a strike.
Yeah, that was a great build from us, and a great strike from Luka. And I think he made up from the penalty he missed against City. So we're all happy for him.
He's forgiven, yeah?
Yeah, he's forgiven.
And sort of the unbeaten run, what do you sort of put it down to from the start of the season to where we are now? It's some achievement from the squad.
Yeah, I think we realise that when we play as a team, we can achieve some great stuff and we can win against everybody. So I think that's maybe down to the gaffer. He put out in our head what we have to do, and we've done it like brilliantly.
And from your own personal point of view, you've said the difference that he's made to your game and got you playing more central.
Yeah. He made me play more central because I'm more of a winger. So I'm happy playing that position at the moment. So, and if I can help the team, as I said, that's good for us.
And up to 14th tonight in the table, coming out of a busy Christmas programme. That's a hell of a position for us to be in.
Yeah, that's good. Because we took like 4 points out of 9 against Arsenal, City and Southampton. So I think that was some really good performances for us. So tonight being 14th, it's really good.
Roy, you would have always been concerned coming in after playing so soon on Sunday. But game of two halves, as they say. What a comeback from us.
Yes, the first half I thought looked a bit weary, to be honest. We couldn't seem to get our legs going as we would have liked, and the pitch didn't help. It was a heavy pitch, and there was no real flow to the game. They weren't exactly moving the ball around like they would have wanted to, but we certainly were looking nothing like ourselves in the way that we want to play. Second half was just the opposite. Second half was just the pitch didn't seem to matter anymore. The fact that we played 2 days ago didn't seem to matter anymore. It was just a good, solid Crystal Palace performance, solid at the back, very few chances, and looking very, very dangerous in attack. And I think the 2 goals were certainly a just reward for our performance. We could easily have scored a third and a fourth one.
And Bakary Sako coming on from the bench. You've mentioned about how hard he's worked and how impressed you've been with him on the training pitch since you've taken over as manager. That came through tonight. He really made a big difference, his energy. He did.
I mean, McArthur coming in after not having played against Man City made a difference. Again, Schlupp and Van Aanholt in the left-back position looked nice and lively. But the ones that really impressed me, as I say, were Luka and the 2 centre-backs, because that's a tough ask. They had a really tough game against Man City, trying to control Aguero and De Bruyne and Sane and Sterling. Today they're up against Long and Tadic and Boufal. It was a tough ask for them again, but they came through it very, very well. And we didn't get our clean sheet this time, but we got our victory, and I think that's something which was well merited over the 90 minutes. And it's 3 points that we needed, because once or twice in recent weeks we've played well enough to get 3, but we've had to settle for 1. But today we played well and got all 3.
And now, after a little bit of a rudge in fixtures, we've now got a week before that cup tie at Brighton. What's the sort of recovery period now, a little bit?
Well, I think we've got to look at some of the players. We've got to certainly check to make certain that they're ready for the Burnley game. And, at the moment, although the fans might not really like to hear this, I think if we're going to give people a chance to show what they can do, if we're going to give 1 or 2 players who've been playing literally non-stop for the last 11 games and where we've only lost the 1, we might need to look at 1 or 2 other people. So people like Bakary Sako might need a start. People like Riedewald and Patrick van Aanholt and these guys who did so well against Man City, they might need another go at it. And so I'm hoping to be able to make some sort of changes and freshen up the team a little bit and make certain that 1 or 2 players who actually need to breathe, if you like, after these 11 games and enjoy the fact that it was 11 games for 1 defeat, plenty of points in that time, and make certain they get their head right for the last 16 games where we're going to need an awful lot more points.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Roy Hodgson, Luka Milivojevic, James McArthur and Bakary Sako had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Southampton. But make sure to come in next week for our post-match review of the game against Brighton in the FA Cup. So thanks for listening and remember to up the Palace.